Hello and welcome back to my channel. This week is National Infertility Awareness Week in the US, and in Canada it's Canadian Fertility Awareness Week. So I thought this might be the perfect time to share my fertility journey and talk about what I went through to conceive my son. Because it wasn't straightforward for me and my partner. And I guess I can say I am just like the 1 in 6 couples that struggle with infertility because it took us over 12 months to conceive him. Funny how even though I have all this information, I'm in the fertility and IVF industry, I've done further studies, a trained teacher in natural fertility education, like I have all this information, but unfortunately my body didn't do what it needed to do in order to conceive, which I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that it's such a frustrating, isolating and lonely sort of experience when you do go through infertility, because you trust that your body is going to do it. And unfortunately, when you see that negative pregnancy tests month after month, it can be so hard to stay positive and keep going. But yeah, I just want to say that I know what it's like. I've been there. Of course, if you are struggling on your fertility journey, you don't know where to go, know that I have programs, I do coaching, fertility coaching, so if that's something you're interested in, you can always get in contact with me, and I can be your personal fertility nurse helping you along your fertility journey. Let's jump into it. Let me tell you all about it. So I guess, like I said, it took me and my partner, it actually took us 14 months to have my son, Ren. I have long cycles and I knew that, and I could tell from tracking my cycle. For anyone who tracks their cycle, I had multiple instances where I saw cervical mucus appearing and thinking that I'm getting close to ovulation, but it definitely had, I guess, multiple attempts at trying to ovulate, and I could see that when I was charting. And I'm so lucky that I could chart my cycles because it gave me so much understanding about my body, which I found so fascinating to learn. I sort of knew exactly what my body was doing, and I guess that is the beauty of charting your menstrual cycle. You know where you are in your cycle. Of course, you can never predict ovulation. A lot of time with charting, you sort of confirm ovulation in retrospect. So you sort of need to know what you're looking for to know that you're in your fertile window and to time intercourse, which is, there's sex you have, before and after that. It's just for fun, but at least you know that you're focusing on the right time to enable conception. So again, knowing what to look for. And unfortunately, trying on our own, it wasn't successful. So I know the theory is that normally you have to try for 12 months before you can go get further testing, go see a fertility specialist, so on and so forth. But for me, it got to about 8 months, and that's when I started to sort of think, potentially I think something could be potentially wrong. I went and saw a new GP, said, okay, I'm starting to notice a few things in my cycle. So my second half of my menstrual cycle was getting shorter and shorter. It wasn't, normally the recommended is sort of at least 10 to 17 days. Still wasn't under that, but it was sort of going from 12 to 11 to 10, and it was getting shorter and shorter. So that was sort of what prompted me to go see my GP. And she was great. She got me to go for all these tests, and we had a look at everything. And when she called me with my results, it wasn't bad. She was like, oh, your AMH, your anti-Müllerian hormone, is quite elevated. Looks at potentially your ovarian reserve. But she said, if this was my results, I would want to go speak to a fertility specialist about it. So that's what she did. She referred me to someone. Definitely was really supportive in pushing me to sort of get more testing. And in my brain, being a fertility nurse, knowing all this information, I was like, yeah, I know that if that luteal phase isn't, functioning effectively, it starts from when that follicle grows. So really, maybe I just need a little bit of help. I just need a little bit of help to grow that follicle, ovulate, and then hopefully that luteal phase is going to be a bit better. And because there was nothing in sort of, my lifestyle that I thought could be impacting that. Although I was sort of trying to be a bit healthier and be a bit more health conscious during that time, and making small changes here and there, over this period as well. Yeah, so I went and saw a fertility specialist, and they recommended that we start off doing ovulation induction, which again, I sort of was like leaning towards that's what I was hoping that she would suggest, thinking that I just needed some medication to help that follicle grow. But then again, like I said, things don't go to plan. So yes, I started off with that, but it didn't quite work out how I anticipated it would be. So I was put on a medication called letrozole. What letrozole does, it stops your body from converting androgens to estrogens. So an estrogen is what goes up to your brain to sort of let you know that you're getting close to ovulation. You need to have that LH surge. But because you're not producing estrogen, your body's going, that follicle's not growing. I need to release more FSH and LH to help that follicle grow. So in a sense, it's meant to help with follicle development. So I started the course. It's only 5 days at the start of your cycle that you need to take. So I started doing that, felt fine, didn't have any side effects, and thought this is great. And then I guess I now know what this is like when you understand your body so much. When someone says you need to go for a blood test at a certain day, you know your body. So like I said, I knew I had long cycles. I knew I didn't ovulate to about day 24. But being a clinic, they have protocols. So I was like, I'll be a good patient. I'll do what I'm told. And they're like, go for a blood test on day 14 of your cycle and we'll see what's happening. So I went for a blood test day 14, knowing that I would be nowhere near ovulation, which I wasn't. But what I did discover about myself during this time was that I also have a high naturally occurring luteinizing hormone. So, which meant that it sort of tricked my body, confused it, because LH needs to sort of surge before you ovulate to help release that egg. But because it was sort of already high, it sort of took a while to sort of then get to a point where it sort of enabled ovulation. So that could explain why I was getting these multiple instances of cervical mucus sort of appearing, disappearing. So, and taking a while to get to ovulation. The person that spoke to me on the phone was like, you're very close to ovulation, keep having lots of sex, and we'll go for another blood test in a week and see what's happening. In my mind, I knew based on my results that I wasn't close to ovulation. I could tell in my body all my signs and symptoms that I was tracking. I knew I wasn't close, so I didn't have lots of sex. I will admit. I didn't listen to them in that part. Because I could see that on my results when I got them back that my estrogen levels were still really low. So I knew that I wasn't close to ovulating. Again, I know they're looking at their protocols and things that they have to follow too. So then went back the next week, and again, this is a week later, so around day 21 my cycle, and my LH hadn't really gone up that much at all. Again, same sort of levels, close to ovulation, keep having lots of sex, go for another blood test in a week. So of course we went down that path again, and I knew my body still hadn't done anything, and I went again. And the same sort of thing kept happening. And I was feeling a bit frustrated because by then I would have expected myself to have ovulated. In the end, I didn't actually ovulate till day 35, which was completely different to my normal cycle. Like I said, normally I ovulate around day 24. So me and letrozole, we weren't sort of working well together. It wasn't sort of doing what I expected my body to do. And then after that cycle, I found out we weren't pregnant. So I called back the clinic and was like, okay, what are we going to do next time? What's the next thing to do? And this time they're like, okay, we're going to increase letrozole and see how that goes this time. And I was like, great, we're doing something different. Let's see how this goes. So a same thing happened. So increased letrozole. This time though, I did experience all the side effects that come with taking letrozole, which is sort of like menopausal-like symptoms. I was nauseous, I had hot flushes. It was really not fun to be on. But anyway, we pushed through. And again, on day 14, went for the blood test, and same thing. But this time around, I wasn't looking like I was close to ovulating. And I remember, if my cycle was to go how it should have, we had a holiday booked, and we were going to Hamilton Island, and that would have been during my 2-week wait. And I was like, oh, it's the perfect time to relax and, wait to see if we're pregnant. I know if anyone's trying to conceive, you're planning all these things. So be relaxed, having my mocktails on the beach. It's going to be great. But by the time we went on that holiday, I actually hadn't even ovulated at all that month. And it wasn't until we got back that I ended up ovulating, like around day 50 of my cycle. So yeah, we ended up having a 67-day cycle. It was quite ridiculous. But that then prompted me to sort of go back and be like, okay, this clearly isn't working. I need to see this fertility specialist again and have a discussion about what we're going to do next. During that second cycle, I should also mention they did make me have another dose of letrozole halfway through, and at triple the dose, which obviously I eventually ovulated. But when I went to see the fertility specialist and we're talking about it, she was like, you ovulated on the triple dose, so we'll do that next time. And I ended up, this is why I think it's so good having information and knowing what to do, because I ended up putting my foot down and was like, absolutely not. Clearly, this is not working for us. And here I was thinking that do a couple of ovulation induction cycles, and then, if they don't work, move on to, say, maybe even something like IVF. But it was nearly the end of the year, so I was like, oh yeah, just a couple of months of doing ovulation induction. Well, I ended up dragging on, instead of just being 2 months, it was sort of like closer to 4 months that this process was taking. So I was like, well, no, I'm not going to be doing triple the dose, because what if this then just takes 3 months for me to ovulate rather than, 2? So I ended up sort of advocating for myself and saying, I think we need to do something different. And she did then give me another option, which was using follicle stimulating hormone injections. And I was okay with that. I have no qualms with injecting myself. I do highly recommend using ice. That was a really big lifesaver in terms of giving myself the injections. And I'll have to admit that, so the month before we did that, I also did a tubal patency test to check my tubes. They were open. And I had been working, like I said, throughout this process on all the different lifestyle factors and really try and sort of be as healthy as possible and see how I could improve. Like, I have a lot of gut issues, so really trying to focus on my gut health, increase sort of some nutrients that I was sort of lowing. So I was really trying to focus on all that too. So then it came around to the month we were going to start trying. It's really strange, and I guess we don't really talk about this that often, but I ended up having the best period I have ever had. And I say that because I never thought there was anything wrong with my period until I had this period. And I guess normally the period blood was quite dark, and I just thought that was just, it was just slow, it was too much of it. But it turns out it was really thick, because this period I had was like literally red wine pouring into a glass. Like, it was bright red, it was flowing beautifully, it wasn't thick in texture or anything like that. This is what your period is meant to be like. This is not how my period has been like ever. Since I had one, since I was like 14. It's not ever been like this. So it was really interesting to sort of see that and then go, okay, I've started this cycle with a really good period. So now that I've hopefully had a good bleed, my lining has shed what it needs to, hopefully then it can build up and create the perfect environment for, a baby. So I guess that was one positive starting that month. And then we did the injections, and my body responded so much better than the letrozole. So I could see I was getting lots of mucus. I had to give a trigger injection to stimulate ovulation, but I ended up ovulating on day 16, which is so much earlier than what I normally ovulate. So it just felt right. That cycle was just, it was just a lot better in terms of how my body responding, my hormone levels, the ultrasound, it all was looking really good. I was also on progesterone pessaries after ovulating, which if you've ever been on progesterone pessaries, rest in peace to all your underwear, because it just ruins it. I don't like wearing liners, so I basically just ruined all my underwear. Ended up being the month that I conceived. And I will never know if it was the actual ovulation induction cycle itself, being on all those medications and then having a better follicle development, ovulating effectively, and then having some luteal phase support, so that progesterone pessaries, whether it was that, or maybe my body just had the best period it ever had that it just needed to shed that lining a lot better. And as you can see, it wasn't straightforward. It did take a bit of adjusting and finding something that worked for my body. I know that my story isn't as invasive and as long as others, and I guess all I can say is that we are all unique. So I hope that by listening to my story, you're not comparing that to yourself, because we all have different eggs, sperm, uterine environment, genetics, medical conditions, everything. It's all so different. So please don't compare yourself to me. This is just my story and my experience, and that's all I want to share today, is sort of what I've been through. It wasn't an easy process. There are many tears along the way. It was very hard for me, my partner, or especially me. I did feel like I was letting us down in order to start our family, and that's so hard to go through. But all I can say is having a great support network around you. My partner was really supportive. We told my family, and that's because I wanted them to sort of know what was happening, just in case. I was also seeing a counsellor, so it was really good to have someone outside the picture that I could talk to. So I highly recommend making sure you have a good team around you going through something like this. But there you go. That's my little story about what I went through. I guess the piece of advice I could give everyone is that you know your body, you know what's happening. Make sure you do advocate for yourself, because that was a huge thing for me that I found, that asking different questions, asking for different alternatives, you're allowed to do that. As I mentioned, if you want extra support, know that I can be an added support that you can have on your healthcare team. So get in contact with me, and as always, I'm sending love, luck, and a sprinkle of baby dust.